Tom Bower, the legendary royal author, is sharpening his quill for a new edition of his book set to reveal huge secrets inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's marriage.
I think personally, they've separated their professional lives, but I think what's really a great problem for them now, as of in the last few weeks, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Tom Bower just dropped a bomb that flips everything we thought we knew about Harry and Meghan's marriage. According to the veteran royal biographer, there's a hidden clause in their prenuptial agreement, page 14, clause 7, that Harry signed without really understanding it. And trust me, once you hear what it says, it all clicks.
Apparently Prince Harry is already talking to divorce lawyers?
So this is kind of interesting. This is the woman that the papers are citing for this reporting is a longtime royal insider, and she's claiming she's heard from several sources now that he's hired a lawyer, and it happens to be somebody who's a great divorce lawyer and specializes in divorce. And it dovetails on other reports that he is spending a lot of his time in 2 hotels, one of which is in Montecito.
What happens when the future king starts rewriting the rule book before he ever touches the crown, and nobody notices because the internet is busy arguing about jam jars and Netflix trailers? And what if the biggest royal punishment isn't a dramatic exile, but a quiet piece of paperwork that turns a famous title into nothing more than a memory? All right, lean in, because this one is the kind of story that doesn't explode all at once. It creeps. It's whispers in hallways, meetings you'll never see, and decisions that don't hit the public until they're already locked in. Because while everyone's scrolling, reacting, dunking on clips, and treating royal drama like a weekly TV episode, something much bigger is happening behind palace doors. And it's not a screaming match. It's not a tabloid war. It's a strategy. The word floating around right now from sources and palace watchers and the usual people who swear they know someone who knows someone is simple. Prince William is doubling down. Not maybe, not if he feels like it, more like it's a matter of when, not if, that he moves to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles once he's king. And before anyone jumps in with the "you can't do that" or "that would never happen," hold that thought. Because the real story isn't whether it's cruel or fair or petty. The real story is how William allegedly thinks. And if the reports are even half true, he's not thinking like a hurt brother. He's thinking like a manager of a 1,000-year-old brand that only stays alive by knowing when to evolve and when to cut things cleanly. Yeah, I said brand. Don't throw tomatoes yet. Monarchies don't survive modern life on vibes alone. Now, quick thing, if you like these deep dives where we pull the thread and watch the whole sweater unravel, tap like and subscribe, because the next part is where it gets weirdly methodical. So let's rewind a bit, because this didn't start with Harry's memoir or a Netflix doc or a podcast clip. The seeds were planted years ago, and the biggest hint came from somewhere most people weren't even watching, Denmark. Back in 2022, Queen Margrethe Denmark made a move that sent shockwaves through basically every royal house in Europe. She stripped 4 of her own grandchildren of their prince and princess titles. No dramatic press war, no endless negotiations dragged through the tabloids, just done. And the reasoning was blunt in that very royal way where they're trying to sound polite, but it lands like a slap. Too many royals dilute the whole thing. The public needs to know who actually represents the crown and who's simply family. Translation, if everyone's special, nobody's special. And allegedly, William watched that like a hawk. Because here's the contrast people keep pointing to. Charles is often described as emotional, reconciliation-minded, still clinging to the dream of family unity, even if it's messy. William, though, the way insiders describe him is colder. Not evil, not cartoon villain, just strategic, clinical even. Like the kind of person who can feel heartbreak, but still shows up to the meeting with a spreadsheet. And if you think that's a drag, it might also be exactly why he's seen as the monarchy's future-proof guy. Depending on who you ask, he's either the responsible reformer or the ice-cold executor. Now, the main point people keep circling is this. Every interview, every documentary, every tell-all, every source close to, quote, it doesn't just hurt feelings, it chips at the institution. It blurs the line between private family drama and public constitutional symbolism. And that blur is where monarchy systems start panicking. Not loudly, quietly. Because if the public can't tell who speaks for the crown and who's freelancing off the crown, it becomes chaos. And chaos is not what monarchies do. Monarchies do hierarchy. They do clarity. They do, this person matters, this person is ceremonial, this person should be smiling at a ribbon cutting right now. So the story goes, William isn't waiting to deal with it later. He's already planning. And here's where it starts sounding like a thriller. According to multiple reports and the people who love to whisper about planning documents, William has supposedly been surrounding himself with historians, constitutional experts, and royal strategists, people who don't just read gossip, people who study how monarchies survive modern pressure without collapsing into irrelevance. And what they keep pointing to is one of the most powerful, least understood tools in the royal toolbox, letters patent. If you've never heard of it, don't worry, most people haven't. It sounds like a stationery brand, but it's basically the kind of formal royal instrument that can redefine titles and status without needing a whole public brawl about it. George V used it back in 1917, in a moment where the monarchy basically looked around and went, okay, too many people are running around with royal titles, this is getting ridiculous. So he trimmed the list. And the important part is this, the power to do something like that still exists, which means if the chatter's right, William's camp has supposedly been drafting a modern version, a 21st century tightening of what it means to be royal. And if you're thinking, okay, but why would he do that? Here's the logic that keeps coming up. Only working royals, meaning people actively serving the institution full-time, should keep the top-tier royal status and styles. Everyone else can still be family, sure. Come to Christmas, stand on the balcony sometimes if everyone's behaving, smile for photos, but not royal in the official, symbolic, taxpayer-facing sense. In other words, you don't get to quit the job and keep the uniform. And honestly, that argument is so clean, it's almost annoying, because it doesn't sound like revenge, it sounds like policy. It's the kind of thing that on paper you can sell to the public as modernization and clarity. Who's going to argue against clarity? It's like arguing against clean water. You look insane. Now, let's talk about the real lightning rod here, Harry and Meghan, because the rumors aren't just William is annoyed. The rumors are that he wants Harry and Meghan to have no role when he becomes king, and that he's already mapping the steps to make sure of it. Some commentators even frame it as he doesn't want the monarchy dragged into endless side plots, commercial ventures, or brand deals where royal titles become marketing tools. And this is where things get spicy, because Meghan's whole public identity in the business world is tied to that edge, that rare mix. Celebrity, yes, but celebrity with royal proximity, royal adjacency, royal mystique. And if you think that mystique isn't worth money, please be serious. That's the entire reason the Duchess label pops in headlines the way it does. It's a shortcut. It implies exclusivity. It suggests inside knowledge. It makes every project feel like it has a velvet rope vibe. Now, here's the part that's been driving palace watchers up the wall, the use of HRS style and other royal styling, even when the reported agreement was that those styles wouldn't be used publicly. Again, we're in the land of reports say, insiders claim, and royal experts argue, so treat this like analysis, not a sworn statement. But the gist is that there was allegedly a long-standing understanding that certain styles are for working royals and not for those who step away. The logic is pretty simple. Working royals are not supposed to profit off the status. It's an honor, not a product. So if someone leaves, then uses the styling as a kind of glossy stamp of authority, it's going to trigger alarm bells inside the palace. And according to some of the more dramatic voices in this space, that's exactly what happened. A moment where HRS styling popped up in a way that felt a little too casual, a little too public, a little too, we are going to do what we want. And if William is as strict as the reports claim, that kind of thing would not be seen as a small slip. It would be seen as proof that the line needs to be drawn with permanent ink. Now, I want you to picture two rooms. Room 1, Meghan's side of the world. California, deals, branding, lifestyle products, media projects, the whole thing packaged in a clean aesthetic that whispers luxury and aspirational. And somewhere in that room are people thinking, how do we protect the name? How do we protect the label? How do we protect the value? Because if you're building a commercial empire, you think in intellectual property, trademarks, ownership, control.
And yes, there's been chatter that at one point someone considered trademarking Duchess of Sussex or building business structure around it. Like, if we register it, it becomes a protected business identity, not just a royal courtesy. On paper, smart move. Room 2, Kensington Palace, William's world. A world of precedent, constitutional levers, and long-established systems designed to prevent exactly that. And according to one insider-style description that's been floating around, the vibe was Meghan's camp brought checkers, William's camp brought chess. Because the crown's position, traditionally, is basically the crown gives titles, and the crown controls how they're used. You don't get to take royal status and turn it into your personal product line. And if you're thinking, okay, but could they actually stop it? That's where the conversation turns back to those centuries-old mechanisms. If William becomes king and issues letters patent that narrows who is officially royal, you're not just dealing with family drama anymore. You're dealing with a formal redefinition of status. And that's when the media world gets brutally practical. Because entertainment is not sentimental. Streaming platforms do not pay for vibes. Brands do not write checks because someone has a complicated family tree. They pay for what moves product, what pulls viewers, what creates headlines, what feels exclusive. Right now, Meghan's appeal in many deals is that she's not just Meghan Markle, she's Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. That title is basically a multiplier. But if that connection is officially severed by paperwork, not rumor, not social media debate, but formal royal action, the multiplier changes. And here's the twist that makes this whole situation feel like a Greek tragedy written by corporate lawyers. She wanted freedom from the institution, and that makes sense. Who wouldn't want to step away from the pressure cooker? But freedom has a cost that's easy to underestimate. The institution was part of the product. And I know that sounds harsh, but just look at how this stuff works in the real world. When you're inside, you inherit value. When you step outside, the market reassesses you without the institutional backing. It's not even personal, it's math. Which is why, reportedly, there's been quiet talk of major players evaluating the real return on investment, not in a cartoonishly evil way, just business. What are we paying for? What are we getting? What happens if the title isn't there? And if William's camp is thinking strategically, they wouldn't even need to go to war publicly. They wouldn't need a screaming press release or a big televised showdown. They could simply do nothing. Let time pass, let the deals evolve, let the public get bored, let the market cool. Then, when the moment is right, tighten the rules, formalize the system, and let the chips fall where they fall. That's the part that's almost scary in a quiet way. The palace doesn't have to destroy anyone, it just has to stop supplying oxygen. And the reports suggest William's team has been framing all of this as modernization, streamlining, and clarity. Not punishment, not revenge, just here's the updated structure for a modern monarchy. And when you wrap something in modernization, you win the optics battle before the argument even starts. Now, to be fair, there's another angle here that some royal commentators keep pushing. This isn't about Harry and Meghan specifically, it's about the monarchy proving value to taxpayers and the Commonwealth. It's about shrinking the visible royal footprint so it feels less like a never-ending aristocratic parade and more like a focused working institution.
And if that's the argument, it also conveniently solves another long-running headache. What happens when non-working royals, or scandal-linked royals, still carry the weight of royal styling? A smaller, tighter monarchy means fewer weak links. So yeah, Harry and Meghan become part of the conversation, but not necessarily the only target. Now let's bring this back to the present timeline described in all this chatter. As of early 2026, Meghan is still building. Products, collaborations, public appearances, media momentum. Harry and Meghan are still being seen at events, still working their projects, still pushing content. There are whispers about renewals, whispers about deal reshuffles, whispers about the next big thing. And while that's happening, the other side of the chessboard is allegedly just consolidating. William is reportedly positioning himself as the forward-facing reformer, the guy who doesn't wait for the crown to start acting like the crown, the guy who's already shaping the institution while the official figurehead still carries the formal title. And the perception shift is real. Even critics who usually roll their eyes at the monarchy sometimes admit if you're going to keep this thing alive in the 21st century, you have to tighten it up. You have to make it make sense. And that's why this title question keeps hanging in the air like storm clouds. Because the moment William becomes king, whether that's years away or sooner than people expect, one signature could reshape everything. Not loudly, not dramatically, but decisively. And if you're Harry and Meghan, what do you even do with that? Do you fight it publicly? That risks looking desperate and turning the whole thing into a messy spectacle. Do you fight it legally? Good luck, because royal titles and styles aren't normal consumer trademark dispute. They're bound up in constitutional tradition and crown authority. Do you ignore it? That works until it doesn't. And this is where the story gets almost poetic in a dark way. The system is designed to outlast individuals. It doesn't need to win an argument on Twitter. It just needs to keep functioning quietly until the moment it chooses to move. Now I want to pause and toss this to you, because this is where the comments section always tells the real truth. Do you think William's approach, if these reports are accurate, is genuine modernization? Or is it cold, calculated, and personal? Or is it both at once? Drop your take in the comments, because I already know people are going to split into teams on this like it's football. And if you're still here, hit like. It helps more than you think. Plus, it tells me you want more of these behind-the-curtain breakdowns. Now here's the final layer that makes this whole saga so telling. This isn't just a story about royal titles, it's a story about power. Because real power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the person who doesn't need to clap back, the person who understands the system so well they don't have to argue, they just activate the system. Meghan wanted independence, and she got it. She's building, she's creating, she's raising her kids away from the palace pressure cooker. That's a valid choice, and honestly, if you believe the way they describe palace life, it probably felt like escaping a labyrinth. But independence comes with one hard truth: the institution isn't obligated to follow you when you leave. And if William is really playing the long game, the way the rumors suggest, then he's not trying to win a headline today. He's trying to shape the monarchy for the next 50 years, which means the real impact of this strategy won't be fully visible until he's actually on the throne, and those alleged letters patent plans either become real or they don't. So yeah, while everyone watches the fireworks, the chessboard is still sitting there, quiet, waiting. And that's why this whole thing is fascinating. It's not just family drama, it's governance by symbolism. It's a modern celebrity economy crashing into an ancient institution that has survived precisely because it knows how to redraw lines when it has to. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe for more. And tell me in the comments, if William makes this move one day, do you think the public applauds the clarity, or do you think it backfires and makes Harry and Meghan look even more like victims? Either way, we're watching the slow setup to a moment that could change the royal landscape in a single stroke of a pen. Thanks for hanging out with me, seriously, I appreciate you.